Got it. All right. I think we have landed. Let's see. It's doing that weird thing that it does where it shows me the private screen. Let's redo that there. Nope, it still says private.
I'm trying to see you on YouTube, but they're doing that thing where I'm not allowed.
All right, I think we're there. We're in the regular thing, and as soon as somebody tells me that we've made contact, we will begin. Jana. Jana.
Oh, Jana. I know Tom's going to be here because we were on the Robert Phoenix chat this morning.
Aha, Tom Jordan. All right, I think we're there. Let's see.
I'm our first like.
Yay. Laura just texted me, are you starting late? Like she's looking for us and can't find us.
Does 6 minutes count as late? I mean, I see us on YouTube and they like.
Oh, here we are. We've got
yes, Mr. Nick, Sacred Witness.
Yes. Okay. We have an audience, so we can get started. All righty. What's going on? I think I've never, well, I can't say never, but this week I really like felt more deeply than I have in a while how much I like completely actually don't care about the politics at all.
I don't either. And which is why it's so funny that we cover it.
Right.
Because it's so lame. And I literally had nothing as of this time yesterday, zero. Yeah. And then miraculously, I found my way to a couple things. And I did not show up empty-handed. But I think there's something to the fact that neither of us care.
Well, I think that's what makes us able to do this, right? It's kind of like, you know, when you don't care anymore, you're not nervous. And so you would not wobble on your beam routine or whatever kind of thing in the meet, right? But when you're like super focused and you want to do really well, then it's like everything is a trip up. But I listened to the same thing for me. I listened to a lot of things this week, but everything was boring. Nobody's saying anything new, right? Like, it's just like, it was just a fucking snooze fest. Really the only thing, like my only like shifting in anything, it's not even a shifting. It's just like Glenn Greenwald has done a ton of long form interviews and debates over the course of the past week, and he has been excellent. And so watching him in a different environment than his usual scenario and listening to him answer, questions from people who are ideologically opposed to him in different sort of settings than he normally does, and questions that he hasn't been asked in a while or ever, like the amount of consistency that he is building in terms of like my assessment of his sort of integrity is pretty good. So that's really the only thing that I can say about anyone, right? So
did you bring clips from his Dershowitz thing?
I didn't bring any clips from the Dershowitz thing just because it was Dershowitz was so unhinged. It was so unhinged. And it felt mostly like what Glenn was kind of arguing was really like the stuff we've already argued back in the Iraq period of time and in the Syria period of time. It wasn't new information. It was just like, remember when. But he overwhelmingly won that. So Glenn Greenwald and Alan Dershowitz did a Soho Forum debate where they were Dershowitz was arguing in the affirmative for the United States and or Israel should preventively bomb Iran, right? So he was arguing in the affirmative and Glenn was opposing. And in the end, I think Glenn won 66% to 24% with 10% or 15% or whatever it was being undecided, which Glenn's numbers, both of their numbers increased and the undecided decreased, but Glenn increased more. But I mean, some of the things that Alan Dershowitz was saying were so unhinged and so out there. And it's almost like, I'm not one of these people that like thinks these things or goes around saying these things, but it's almost like, dude, the dude should be deported to Israel, right? Like, I don't know.
I heard the first 5 minutes of Dershowitz just starting to to put out his ideas that war is good, and he lost me. But the fact that we still engage debate in this country, I think shows how ass backward we are, because debate is two people fighting for the veracity of their opinion. There's no engagement. There's no collaborative conversation of like, well, what's the Venn diagram of crossover of our interests and how can we work together to create those? It's so archaic and barbaric, and just an indication of how ass backwards we still are.
Well, and interesting that they think, well, I mean, and I understand on one level how you get there, but like that we do that is evidence of still thriving free speech and whatever it is. But it is interesting that people don't choose to take the free speech to do what you're talking about.
Well,
right?
and it's also because in the middle of a debate, the way it's set up, it's like, I'm going to cling to my opinion and my side and just try to convince you. So there's no give or take. I've never seen a debate, like let's take Glenn Greenwald, Glenn and what's his face, Alan Dershowitz, where Alan would be like, you know what, Glenn, that's a really good point. Let me mull that over. And, like that is not done in debate. It's like, I'm right, and here's how I'm going to prove that I'm right.
So I think once or twice, like not over anything that like matters to the point being argued at the moment, but like Glenn got something wrong and Alan was correct, and Glenn ceded that. Yes, I'm sorry, I was in error. But what was interesting is that Glenn got him to acknowledge that his purpose for wanting the thing was to bomb Iran's nuclear facilities, right? And Glenn got him to admit that what his real goal was regime change, right? And so and he admitted and acknowledged it. But what's disturbing about this is he didn't think that was a problem. Like Glenn was trying to convince people that Dershowitz is trying to hide from you that when he says this, what he really means is an ongoing thing that will ultimately lead to regime change. And Dershowitz was just like, well, no, yeah, obviously I want regime change, and this is how we do it. And so like in some ways there was agreement over what Alan Dershowitz's point was, but it's just this, I mean, it's pathological. Like it's just, there's no bomb that these people don't want to drop. Like, it's just fucking crazy. Right?
It's crazy. It's really, I know everyone says that 2024 is the year of the reveal. So I feel like that's why we're seeing more of this. Like, yeah, of course we want regime.
And he's completely open about the fact that he does think United States should be able to control sort of global international policy, and that regime change is necessary in order to install governments that cooperate. And like, he doesn't recognize how insane he sounds when he says this. And then you think back to like, this is the person who was defending O.J. Simpson and who has been on the Epstein plane and is, there's not like a sort of weird cultural political scandal that he doesn't somehow have his paws in, right? Correct. And it's just like, why do people still call him the esteemed Dr. Dershowitz? Like, why isn't he like exiled to the dregs of society? I don't understand.
Like Kissinger got to play the game for however many decades he got to play the game. It's just like, I feel like we're at the point in this country where like everyone knows it's rigged, it's a sham, it's not a constitutional republic, and it's like too fucking bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even like Dave Smith was talking about that. I know we're going to share a clip from Dave Smith on Breaking Points, but he was talking about that. He's like, there's really like not going to be like a political solution to this problem we find ourselves in, right? Like, it's going to be like just sort of people separating themselves sort of from that scenario. And then over time, that will fall, but there's not going to be some fixing or leveling up or overturning of that. There's just going to be like decay and rot, and then see what happens.
Potentially. I mean, it certainly seems like that. And right. As the like maniacal idealist that I am, anything could happen.
I don't think the world is going to decay and rot, but I think the political system. And so for me, I'm not necessarily opposed to the political system decaying or rotting, but I do think that like largely it's a not intelligent use of energy to put a lot of effort into trying to fix that. It's like when I see somebody like, like you love your car and you don't want to buy a new car because you don't really want a car payment. You don't want You don't want a smart digital bullshit, whatever the fuck that thing is that rides around on wheels and pretends to be a car. But like at a certain point, you're throwing good money after bad. It's just like, it's not really worth an ounce more of our energy. But since we have 45 minutes at least left, we're going to burn a few calories on this here. So where would you like to start, my dear?
Well, since we mentioned Dave Smith, would you like to start with Dave Smith since he's in the air?
Now, Dave Smith tomorrow night or the following is going to be debating Chris Cuomo over on the Paul Bet David podcast.
Patrick Bet David.
Yeah, Patrick Bet
Cuomo doesn't have a chance in hell. That's a joke. That's like dudes becoming women so that they can suck less at sports.
Totally. But I like that he's kind of getting to go around and do this because I think he's well-spoken and he's not embarrassing. Like Dave Smith is not
totally. So. And it's not included in this clip that we're about to share, but I like that he called out Tulsi Gabbard on like, she'll change her opinion on any policy if it's going to put her in the room.
Totally. Where did you hear that?
On that same Crystal Sager show.
I didn't hear that part. I thought I listened to the whole thing, but maybe
it was in between talking about the woke joke of a libertarian nominee.
Okay.
And what we're about to get into.
Okay. I was like, I think I was on that part when I was working out. So maybe I missed something. Okay. All right. So share sound, optimize video clip. Dave.
While you're doing that, and I know we're jumping out of order, but just because I'm seeing this now, Gigi Abby Lynn asks, I'd like Dani to explain why she thinks we don't have a constitutional republic, the Patriot Act.
I mean, I think as soon as there was anything that was more than the original, I think 12 things, the original 12 or the Bill of Rights and the original 12 things on the Constitution that were like part of the original thing. I think it's been that soon as there was more, it was the start of active degradation of that. And, you know, I have a problem with even that much restriction to begin with, but theoretically that's what this is supposed to be. But yes, you like if none of the other prior things were evidence, then the Patriot Act certainly was. So, all right. Here we go. Dave Smith on with Sauger and Lemon Chiffon.
As the Libertarian Party and people who may vote Libertarian, how do you think they in general feel about Bobby?
Because you brought attention to Lemon Chiffon, I want to share my theory so we can all feel into it as it speaks. I think she's a dude. I think Crystal is trans, and that's why because she dresses the way trans women dress, where it's like, I've been fantasizing about being a woman my whole life, so I'm going to wear ruffles and things that don't, like, her shoulders are broader than yours and mine combined. Her neck is pretty big. The name Crystal Ball is a bullshit stripper name.
It's a drag queen name. It's totally a drag queen name. Yeah.
So that's my new theory.
I love it. All right. So this actually, this is not her. She has like one dress that has like ruffles and is yellow. And she has another one that looks like a wedding cake. This one is more like garden party with.
Yeah, it's garden party, but certainly not appropriate.
And moths on it or birds. I don't know what that is, right?
It's not. And everything's like very tight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, continue.
It is interesting. She's got kind of a wide jawline and then this sort of straight, thick neck. I see what you're saying.
I think it's a dude.
I think you might. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Kennedy and how he's positioned himself. There seems to be affinity in certain places, not affinity in other places. There had been early some talk about maybe he'd pursue the Libertarian nomination. I know his name was put in. He didn't seem to get a lot of votes. So just talk us through.
Oh, no. What is this about? YouTube's been doing this for some reason today.
Come on, YouTube fairies.
I have to hear a commercial again. Sorry, guys. Hold on. David Miliband.
I'm a humanitarian.
Right.
Loser because my guy lost and he won. but I don't see how it's gonna be a year where the Libertarian candidate gets a lot of votes.
Okay. How does the Libertarian Party and people who may vote Libertarian, how do you think they in general feel about Bobby Kennedy and how he's positioned himself? There seems to be affinity in certain places, not affinity in other places. There had been early some talk about maybe he'd pursue the Libertarian nomination. I know his name was put in. He didn't seem to get a lot of votes. So just talk us through some of those dynamics.
Well, libertarians are individualists, and so it's all, if you ask 100 different libertarians, you'll probably get 100 different answers. I know there were a lot of positions that he was very bad on from the libertarian perspective that he kind of started sounding a little better on, but there was never really an explanation for how he got there, and so to go from whatever, that the Koch brothers should be arrested for denying climate change, to now kind of seeing climate change, the agenda, as this trap to usher in totalitarianism, is a big leap on guns and a lot of other issues. He doesn't sound the same now as he sounded in the not very distant past. But I'll tell you from my perspective, when I first found out that he was interested in seeking the libertarian nomination, I thought it was something we really should consider. This was back in the summer of last year. And because we did have huge areas of agreement, particularly, he was so good on Ukraine, and he was so good on the COVID regime. He was really good on the deep state and three-letter agencies in general. And he was really good on China also, which is like the one that none of us probably cover enough, that there's just been so many moves to push tensions with China, so going back to the Obama administration through Trump and continuing with Biden. But for me, as I'm sure kind of for you guys, after October, it was all over. It was just, and I could maybe get over you not being great on that issue, but when your foreign policy advisor is Rabbi Shmuley, and you're going around the entire country, and you're coming, as he said on your show, I was just so disgusted. I'd never consider the guy again. When he said to you guys that the Palestinians are the most pampered people in the world, it's like, I don't know. I don't even know what to say to that. You're done. And also, all of us are going into our conspiracy minds right now. Like, who would possibly say that? Who would possibly just go on this public humiliation tour like this? Like, what do they have on you? That's all I keep thinking. And so, but even aside from that, just the policy itself, it's so disgusting.
I will say, Dave.
Is that it? Or continue?
There's just the next 10 seconds.
Yeah, no, we spoke to him. I actually think he believes it. It's when sometimes people are like, oh, it's got to be blackmail or all that. I'm not going to say that that doesn't play a role. Yeah,
that's actually
I agree. No, that's what I'm saying. I want people to know that. That's why it's actually worse. Now, I'm not just talking about.
It's so satisfying to hear, right?
So satisfying,
right? We've had a lot of dissatisfaction with things lately, and this, my friend, was satisfying. Right. It's true. Like, there's no, right. Like, there's no, the absolute, and you and I were talking about this earlier, right? Claiming to be anti-war, claiming to be pro-peace or whatever it is. You can say that, I support Israel, or I prefer whatever that is, but I'm anti-war, so I can't support what they're doing. And that, right. And then you can say you're anti-war. Right. But it's literally oh, bombs when they land in this country is not war, and bombs when they land in this country is war, right? And this is just where I'm at with everything. And I brought this up last time, right? Is that I don't understand why Blackwater isn't terrorists, and right? It's basically everything comes down to, when I agree with you, you're a freedom fighter, or we call it, the fancy name is the mercenary. And when I disagree with you, you're a terrorist, or if you're Tulsi Gabbard, it's an Islamist terrorist, because you're also under mind control, right?
And this is, as you and I were talking about earlier today, this is why it's why RFK sticks in my craw. And I mentioned Chappelle saying Donald Trump is an honest liar because he tells you ahead of time, I'm not trustworthy. What I don't like about RFK is how he claims to be trustworthy. He claims to be running an honest candidacy when he's doing the exact opposite. That's what I have the least amount of respect for.
Yeah, he's to me, just he's the one I can look at the least now. I can't stand to look at his face, right? Yep. It takes quite a bit to get me to that place. Okay, shall we, since you mentioned Dave Chappelle, should we go there next?
Yes, I'm so excited for this one.
Which one would you like first?
So
it's genocide.
What was that?
The it's genocide one.
Yes, the it's genocide one, and we only need the first minute to set up the other two.
All right, sounds good. Here we go. Fair use.
Dave Chappelle coming in hot here.
So so if Crystal Ball is a dude in drag, is this a female? Is this a female in male drag? Because this is her husband.
This is her husband?
This is her husband.
Oh, fuck yeah. He looks like Ken. What kind of hairdo is it? What is wrong with them?
Well, what's crazy is like she was married to someone else before and then like quickly got divorced and got married to him, right? They've done a show together for a long time. I think they had an affair. They got married quickly. And when they got married, he fucking bleached his hair blonde. Like, I don't know how familiar you are with like all of the markers of when someone has been reprogrammed or MK'd or whatever, but like oftentimes the blonde hair dye, like especially when it like makes no sense because you're upwards of 40 and you're like, you know, whatever.
Wearing like a Joe Schmo, I bought this at Costco shirt. It's not like he seems particularly attuned to like being super stylish that he would go through the trouble of bleaching his hair at this stage of his life.
But if you get all that facial hair off, like I could see a woman underneath there.
I think they're like a gender bending couple for sure.
All right. Here we go.
Apparently, according to the Associated Press, Chappelle said that there's a genocide in the Gaza Strip. He did it at a comedy show. Here, let me give you some of the specifics. American comedian Dave Chappelle said Thursday a genocide is striking the Gaza Strip amid the Israel-Hamas war to cheers during his performance in the capital of the UAE, while urging Americans to fight anti-Semitism so Jews don't feel like they need to be protected by Israel. Chappelle's comments come as Abu Dhabi has maintained.
That's all we need. So Dave Chappelle famously does not allow anyone to film his show. So that's why we're getting this. So please cut to the two clips that I sent you. And I think they both start at the 0 mark.
Okay, so the first one is the Dave Chappelle on Jews, Kanye, anti-Semitic. We'll start with that one. And since they're both starting at the 0 mark, here we go. Fair use.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here. But before I start tonight, I just wanted to read a brief statement that I prepared. I denounce anti-Semitism in all its forms. And I stand with my friends in the Jewish community. And that, Kanye, is how you buy yourself some time. I gotta tell you guys, I've probably been doing this 35 years now. And early in my career, I learned that there are 2 words in the English language that you should never say together in sequence. And those words are the and Jews. I've never heard someone do good after they said that. Kanye's got into some scrapes before, normally when he's in trouble.
Okay. And then pick up the other one.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, here we go.
Fair use.
News pundit screaming about Kanye. She said, mental health is no excuse for that type of language. Yes, it is, bitch. You can kill somebody if you're mentally ill.
I don't know what's happening with the video, why it's not moving. Sorry, guys.
Oh, there's no...
Listen, okay,
Yeah, it's just a
I don't
toy.
think Kanye is crazy at all. I think he's possibly not well. Well, I've been to Hollywood. I don't want y'all to get mad at me. I'm just telling you. I've been to Hollywood. This was just what I saw. It's a lot of Jews. Like a lot. But that doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? There's a lot of black people in Ferguson, Missouri. Doesn't mean we run the place. I could see if you had some kind of issue, you know what I mean? You might go out to Hollywood and your mind might start connecting some kind of lines and you could maybe adopt the delusion that the Jews run show business. It's not a crazy thing to think. But it's a crazy thing to say out loud in a climate like this.
That's it.
Okay. Yep, pretty much. Pretty much. All right.
Have you heard the theory? Roseanne and Jim Brewer were saying that they don't think that this is the real Dave Chappelle. They think that when he came back from Africa, he was replaced.
A lot of people think that. I've been hearing that for since the I started hearing that since the moment he took off for Africa, right? People were like, oh, they offed him, and whatever's going to come back is going to be something else, something different. I mean, I could have as many theories for this as the day is long, right? In terms of, what could be happening. I mean, there's, great big gigantic portal there in South Africa and probably loads of other places. And he could easily have walked into another world and sent the Dave from the other world back over here and say, it's like your turn to take over for a bit, buddy. Like, I'm doing something different. Right. You could go a million ways with it. But there's lots of people have pointed out some noticeable differences in appearance and behavior.
Physique. He used to be a skinny guy. Now he's like a big lumbering thing.
Yeah.
I just find it hilarious. And I thought these jokes were super funny, but they're certainly riding a line. And now for him to be preaching to us about anti-Semitism, like, really?
Well, I mean, so it's funny that he says that. And it also, like, let's just push aside for a second whether this is the real Dave Chappelle or a fake controlled Dave Chappelle or whatever the fuck it is, right? This is this delusion that they've been able to sell people that Jews are unsafe everywhere, right? Like, is one of these things that, like, okay, as satisfying as certain things to say might be for some people who like to say crass things, right? Like, when you do that because they seem to be in control, right? You are increasing the likelihood of all kinds of crazy sets of rules and laws, right? So, and also you have, and other people have pointed out, that when you call everything anti-Semitism, you're actually like not paying appropriate attention to when there's like real, actual, true, serious issues of anti-Semitism, which are still free speech, but deserve to be called out for what they are, which is an anti-Semitic thing. And when basically everything, it's kind of like the terrorist thing. Everything you don't like is anti-Semitism. Everyone you don't like is a terrorist, right? It just makes everything homogenized into meaningless nonsense.
100%. But even before they're like October and this new push for this Anti-Semitism Awareness Act or whatever it's called, even before that, they were saying to link Jews with Hollywood and media, according to the ADL and those crazy people, that is anti-Semitism. So why are you choosing Dave Chappelle as your spokesperson?
Well, I don't know if he's their spokesperson, and I would have to understand the context. And since we can't see the actual video,
he was in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, since we can't see the video, like it's hard to tell if he had that like snickering look on his face or whether he was being serious or whatever it is. But essentially, we're getting to the point that like truth equals anti-Semitism, right? Like it isn't even just things you don't like anymore. Like anything that even smells of the truth, oops, that's anti-Semitism.
Correct.
Right. So yeah, I mean, so I would have to see the full context, but yes, his range is sometimes interesting. And it's been more than one time that he's walked up to a line, stepped over it, and then stepped back into line because like the clapback was too hard. Like he'll take some heat for certain things and then other things he folds.
100%. But there's a difference between walking something back to get out of the heat and now being a spokesperson for the thing that he was just himself doing. And again, I want to be clear, like, I'm not like a precious snowflake. I thought that was a hilarious monologue. I loved every second of it. But to roll it back to the point that now you're going to speak to the public about how we need to protect the Jews from anti-Semitism, it's just like a little over the top in the realm of hypocrisy.
Yeah. I just want to see it. American comedian said genocide is taking place while urging Americans to fight anti-Semitism. Yeah, that does. It seems like a specific threading of the needle. Like he's made the equation. He's made sort of he's deliberated with his own self and been like, I can speak out for the Palestinians, but only if I also pacify my Jewish rulers in Hollywood.
That to me felt like the puppeteers saying, you will say this.
Whether there actually needs to be a puppeteer or he knows where the strings are, and at that point he just dances. But yeah, it's certainly possible. Okay, so we're done with Dave Smith and Dave Chappelle. So all the Daves are off the board.
Daves are complete.
Daves are complete. Do we want to go RFK Jr., Jerry Seinfeld, or Piers Morgan?
Let's do Seinfeld so that we can continue laughing.
All right, here we go. So I just found this a little bit before we got started here, and then we can do a little dialogue on.
We need to make her over. I cannot. Yeah. Between her and Crystal, like there's got to be. It's like we need a synthesis.
To some news actually out of Harvard that we wanted to pair with the interview Barry.
No, with the arms crossed body language. Is there not a producer behind the camera to give her direction? What is wrong with her?
We don't know.
This is not okay.
Weiss conducted with Jerry.
Like this.
It looks like she's trying to look mad, right? Like, I can't believe someone said this or did this, but it feels performative, right?
Weird. Okay, I'll shut up.
Seinfeld over at the Free Press yesterday. So just to contextualize this, we're going to be talking about Harvard starting to say we are going to have a policy of institutional.
She also has no inflection. Like, why is this person on camera?
This is one of the people who I've noticed this over the last couple of years, people who previously were journalists who moved in front of the camera at a specific point. And now does as much or more work in front of the camera. Like, she did not used to be a front of the camera person. Yeah, I agree with you. She's not great in front of the camera.
Not working. No,
but like she initially came on like on The Hill and stuff like that as like a contributor, and then she was like a substitute host and things like that. When you're trying to bring in like the nerdy Republican woman to counter the progressive person she's being paired with that day or whatever it is, right? Like she was kind of filling a specific like role that they try to do in some of these scenarios, right?
But I would still think that there's some sort of like overseeing producer, news director. There's got to be someone who's above her who would fix this problem. None of this is okay for on camera. It's not working.
All right, here we go.
Neutrality along the lines of, something like the University of Chicago, although important observers have pointed out something important, which is that we don't know how Harvard will interpret this.
Observers have pointed out something important. She's not a journalist. I don't know what she is, but no journalist would utter that sentence without correcting themselves. That's insane. Sorry.
So, what's interesting to me, that it's fascinating to me that it's news, that it literally makes news that supposedly the top university in the United States and one of the top ones in the world, finally in the year 2024, has adopted a position of political neutrality. Like, shouldn't that have been a requirement from I recognize Harvard is private, right? But like, they're sitting here talking about this, and then now they're about to question whether we'll know what counts as neutrality. And I'm just like, are we really having this conversation in 2024?
Yeah, but obviously Harvard has been reeling since the Claudine Gay testimony after October 7th, then the encampments, and it's been a hell of a year for Harvard. Now, in his interview with Barry Weiss, Jerry Seinfeld, who just gave a majorly viral commencement address at Duke University, addressed some of what he sees among young people. Let's roll this clip.
Okay, so to me, the intro and then this bit with Barry and Jerry is actually separate. I was just astonished that we're talking about the Harvard neutrality thing. And then this to me was kind of separate because like, I just, the Barry Weiss, Jerry Seinfeld, here we go.
And so you yourself have become politicized in a way.
A little bit, yeah.
Do you feel that?
I do.
You comfortable with it?
It's so dumb. It's so dumb. In fact, when we get protesters occasionally, I love to say to the audience, I love that these young people, they're trying to get engaged with politics. We have to just correct their aim a little bit. They don't seem to understand that as comedians, we really don't control anything.
Right, right.
No one's really...
No, you're pulling the strings over the war in Gaza.
Yeah.
Right? That's how I think of you.
Yeah.
You were in Israel
yes.
since the war started. Okay.
So like that, that was, if you choose to speak out about it, then which he chose to do. And they're going to talk about what his wife did in a little bit, but that was just completely gross. And then this little segment here on Israel, just watch this. Like, I couldn't even believe this was real.
How was that trip?
The most powerful experience of my life.
Really?
I'm sure.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
you know, you just. You know.
That clip was.
What the fuck was that? Right? Right? So, okay. So it's not, I'm not here rejecting the idea that someone can have a very powerful trip to another country or to someplace that their family has linkage to somehow, or that is of a spiritual significance or tribal significance, and that can move you. But that, like, you know that there's no thought in either of those two people's head that might also be what would it be like for someone to go to Gaza right now, to go to Palestine, right? What would it be like for people to right? So they're acting like this is the most sacred, special thing in the world that only the two of them who have been to Israel can understand, like, why it's just gross.
Okay, let's pretend that it was all on the level, and I just want to acknowledge I think Jerry looks great, so I want to give him that.
You like old Jewish men.
I also like young Jewish men.
And you especially like them if they're balding, and he's not really quite balding, so yeah.
But I think it's interesting in tracking how time's onward ticking expresses. So I like to, he doesn't strike me as a particularly health-obsessed person. I haven't seen him in a while. I think he looks great. But he has someone who's been in media for, at least 30 years? Right. So you would think that he would know if you're going to be interviewed about your experience in Israel, it's good manners to articulate, to tell the audience about that experience. Like, that might be okay if you're green and this is your first time being interviewed, but how does that translate to like a successful interview for the audience if you're just doing the I'm trying not to cry? I will say that's the best acting I've seen from Jerry Seinfeld in his entire career.
Because he's really more of a comedian than an actor. So yes, I agree. But to me, that was just, I don't know, that it from a number of angles, that was disturbing to watch.
So disturbing.
Yeah. Okay, continuing.
Shared by Israel's official Twitter account.
Yes.
And then the conversation went on from there. We could roll this next clip from it.
A huge part of the way you think about comedy.
She's so gross. Like, it's like she wants to talk about this in this like very flirty, feminine, sexual way. Like, it's so weird.
Also, the fact that she wrote her Jew book a few years ago feels to me like it was all prepping for what's happening now.
100%.
She seems to be being used in this whole op.
And she's happy to be. She's delighted to be playing this role. She's totally fine with whatever, whatever it is. But she's a very dangerous person, and she's gonna be playing a huge role in the next paradigm that a lot of people are gonna fall for because they're really falling for it. And other people are going to accept because they're exhausted from this. And it might be a few percentage points better, at least temporarily, than what they think they have right now, but ultimately is leading to the same place. And right. So, and she's going to be a huge part of that.
Yep.
Is how the audience never lies.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But what happens if a lot of people are wrong? In other words, I don't think Jews do well in an age of mobs. And I feel that right now in our culture, it's really easy to form mobs.
Yes, really easy.
And what's the difference between the audience never lying, but when does the audience kind of tip into the mob? Do you see?
Right. No, we could go on and listen to, there's a few more minutes we could listen to, and we could listen to Ryan offer his analysis on this. And whatnot, if you want to. Do you want to? Or do you want to stop it? Okay.
Is it juicy? Is it good? I trust you.
Well, he makes some good points, but I just wanted to stop there for dramatic effect for a second, right? The audience is always right. It never lies unless it crosses over into a situation where they're wrong because they're against the Jews, right?
So I'm going to ask you and everyone who's here on the chat, has anyone heard of a Jew in this country in 2024, 2023 being somehow put in danger by a mob?
or just any put in danger, period, for
Correct.
anything having to do with their Jewishness.
Correct. And someone like a couple words do not count as like, I don't know what she's talking about with this mob stuff. They're like trying to create
Correct.
the same Black Lives Matter problem that Obama created.
Correct.
Got it.
On some level, that was more sellable though, because like Jews
There were receipts.
Because there were receipts, right? And Jews arguably have more power than your average, right? Like, so, okay.
See where I'm going with that?
I do.
There's something.
Yeah.
But I really have been wanting to ask you about, like, for someone that relies on the truth telling of the audience to tell you whether or not something is funny.
Mm-hmm.
What does that same principle apply to a mass of people? You see what I mean?
No, Barry.
He's trying to be politically correct here, right? But yeah, she wants to tie these things together and make this argument so badly, right? But she can't do it.
I like that even he's not like, nah.
Yeah.
Well, you can't act like we don't see this every day in many realms. Let's just talk politically, left and right. You're watching mobs. They're mobs.
Mm-hmm.
They're mobs believing their own crap, right?
Yeah.
Huh?
They're not mobs. How are we defining mobs? I picture mobs as like people gathered in real life who are like writing a kind of like aggressive energy together directed against something. How does he see this day to day? Are we living in different dimensions than Jerry and Barry?
I'm certain of that.
That's what a political party is. We're going to make up a bunch of nonsense and we'll all agree to it, right? Right. Okay, let's print up some bumper stickers and get out there, kids. That's politics. So we're tribal animals. We're social creatures. We look for agreement and consensus. We're driven by agreement and consensus, and mob rule gives us comfort, gives us certainty.
Yeah.
It's all BS.
You know, I can actually say to the point about Seinfeld explaining that his trip to Israel after October 7th was the most powerful experience of his life. I can imagine that's true, basically, no matter who you are. I mean, humanitarian tragedy, catastrophe that unfolded after.
I don't think he was talking about the humanitarian tragedy or
I
catastrophe.
don't think so either. He was thinking he was talking about some like special Jew energy that hit him.
Right. He went to some sort of like Jewish Freemasonic, interdimensional Cedar of Lebanon, wood built Temple of Solomon, whatever, right? Or whatever it is.
Right. Okay.
October 7th. Your point about Israel sharing the clip, the Israeli government sharing the clip on X, I think is really interesting as well. But the second part of that is what you added that to the show. You wanted to hear what he said about mob rule. There was a walkout in his speech at Duke, actually. People just walked out of it, which it seemed like he was alluding to.
Yeah.
What stood out to you in that argument about mob rule?
Yeah, and my view on the whole Seinfeld thing was that I think it was like, so the reason that the pro-Palestine protesters started going after Seinfeld.
You are like the least charismatic duo on all of it. They're so bad.
I heard them.
Right? Yeah. All right. But the point he's making here is a point. So
Okay, I'll try to stay away.
He was kind of outspoken in support of the Israeli war effort, but also his wife was directly funding the campus counter protests. And those counter protests, like, actually genuinely got violent and were quite vile in their kind of Islamophobic rhetoric and sometimes anti-Semitic rhetoric. So to protest against, like, you're putting yourself in the arena if you're financing counter protests. And
Yes.
but my view on it was people
As a billionaire, by the way. Yes.
I'm sure, yeah, she's got that Seinfeld money.
Yep.
So, right. So you know which counter.
I'm sorry, I dozed off.
Right, totally. But
Wow.
right, so the counter protest at UCLA that she bankrolled involved like a former IDF soldier, was like the person who actually got violent. There had not been any Palestinian protesters getting violent. right? So it is fascinating that he thought he could get away with, and of course she allowed him, just pretending like, I'm just a comedian, I don't really know anything, right? When literally he has,
because it's Barry Weiss, like it's so
right. The whole thing was gross.
Yeah, that was super gross.
But I'm much more disturbed by Barry Weiss than I am by Jerry Seinfeld, right? Like she, it's interesting what I'm watching here, right? Because we don't talk about her as much as we talk about some other people. But since you and I, like, we did never do a show like we said we would about checking out the board and the staff of the university.
We haven't done it yet.
Yes, correct. The University of Austin, which is the university that she's heading up here, right? And it's interesting to look at who's funding that and who has, professorships and teaching positions and all of that kind of stuff. But it is, she has in the last few weeks either allowed or tolerated Michael Schellenberger to push back a little bit, right? And also a few people who write for her free press are not for that anti-Semitism bill. And so she has been she hasn't spoken out about it herself, but she has through proxies been like, we won't be supporting the anti-Semitism bill here, right? But it almost is like, the same thing, like the having it pointed out that, like, wait a second, there's nobody on this entire board who's critical of Israel. Like, just the calling it out enough at this point, it gets that to be like, okay, well, we don't have to like actually do the right thing, but we'll take a few little, sort of ceremonial or symbolic moves or whatnot, right? But she, like, literally, I think that what she's calling the free press, or what the University of Austin is going to be some sort of school that's supposed to be built on Western liberal values, is going to be part of this constantly reworking and redefining the idea of free speech and what's inside the lines and what's outside the lines, and testing the waters of, like, how far can we get with this before people push back? Okay, let's just go right up to that line. And and kind of create this like massive delusion, because we don't say you can't do that, that free speech is encouraged here.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
it's super gross. And I don't think whatever role Barry Weiss is playing in this whole thing, I don't think we've scratched the surface yet. I don't think she's really stepped into it and claimed it yet. But there's something about the way I'm watching her name being dropped that is some sort of steganography, as you and I were talking about before. It means something else. There's a lot more to her in this than we have realized yet.
And some of the people she has snowed are not that stupid that they should be snowed by her. So they have to be snowed for a deeper reason than that they're really snowed.
Correct. And I mentioned this to you before we recorded, but I'm curious because I know we have like brilliant people in the chat, but I still think there's something to the 2-syllable first name, single syllable last name. And I am aware that I am part of this, but I think there is something fishy about people who are carrying that moniker, and she's one of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of ideas about people who have 2 first names as a name, or people who have 3 first names kind of thing, and what that means, or people who have like lengthy name with like more than 4 syllables for one and a single syllable name for the one after, right? There is different ideas about sort of what that sort of inserts into the consciousness layer or whatever it is. And we know how, like, all the shooters, they always tell you their middle name, even though they don't mention anybody else in the news with their middle name, right? There's all kinds of stuff like that. So that's certainly possible.
Yep.
Okay, we have an RFK clip. So RFK being, I listened to about 12 minutes of the Tim Pool. I just find Tim Pool to be one of the most insufferable people in the world to listen to.
Totally, but I like that his team were on RFK in this, and unfortunately, I apologize that this clip is a little long, but we'll take breaks because it's very revealing of RFK's character, and it seems to me like Tim and this guy, I forget his name.
Luke Rudkowski.
They're on to him, which I appreciate.
All right, here we go.
Extensively running an extortion operation on a lot of high-profile politicians through Jeffrey Epstein. You talked about flying on his airplane before. Is there anything else you could tell us, since there's individuals like Cindy McCain that have come out and talked about how everyone knew what he was doing, he was hiding in plain sight, that people were afraid of him. Is there anything else you could tell us, as there's some speculation about some people saying that you might be getting extorted potentially yourself?
No, I mean, I've been very open and frank about my experience with Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a figure in New York. My wife had a relationship with my wife, who took her own life in 2014, had a relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell, I think, through my wife's old fiance, who had been a Greek, who had been raised.
So he claims he's not sure, but a lot of what he's about to share hinges upon his dead wife, who is no longer alive, to weigh in on this. Like, super convenient.
Well, this all is in the same period as the brain worm too. So if he ultimately ends up getting caught having dirt on him, he could probably blame that. Remember, like his wife died before she could get any money from him, and he was trying to use the brain worm defense, and yeah,
correct.
In
and
Britain.
Also, like, his wife was friends with Ghislaine.
Like that should.
But he didn't. But he never met Jeffrey like that. Oh, okay, RFK, you're in the clear.
Yeah.
And on one occasion in 1993, either she asked or Glenn offered her a ride. My wife wanted to go down to visit my mother on Christmas with our kids.
Pause.
And she.
Could it be a more wholesome reason? Like, how convenient. We wanted to visit grandma on Christmas, and we, as a millionaire political dynasty, couldn't get it together ourselves to figure out how to do that. So God bless Ghislaine for helping our family celebrate the holiday together.
I know.
He said that Glenn had offered her a ride on the plane because they went down there from New York to Palm Beach every weekend. So I wrote on that. We were on there. I was on there with my wife and my children, 2 children. I think Mary was pregnant at the time. And then I took a second plane ride, I think a year later.
Pause. He's brilliant. He dropped in that his daughter was pregnant. These details are very carefully crafted.
Yep.
Thanks, Laura.
We went to South Dakota for the day to do fossil hunting, and this was 13 years before anybody knew anything about Jeffrey Epstein. To me, I didn't know anything about him at that time.
Lies. You're not an intelligent human. You don't have powers of observation. Just because it didn't hit mainstream news, you're going to pretend. Okay, continue.
I had a conversation on that airplane that made me think that, and I saw him do something on that airplane ride to South Dakota that made me think that he was a very bad person.
What did you see?
See, this is what we were just talking about this when you were in the bathroom. There's a lot of accounts of people saying he did really awful stuff.
Well, why don't we hear what he said?
Yeah, I know, and I'm leading up to it.
Well, I mean, it's kind of gossipy, but I was asking him how he made his money. And he told me, because he said that he had been a math teacher at Dalton, which was a school I knew about in New York. I don't know much about it, but I know it's a school for wealthy
Bill
kids.
Barr's father put him in there.
Right, come on.
Yeah, so he told me a story that seemed to me not credible. He said he was, and I said, okay, because I knew he owned a city block in the.
This is such an approved story because we haven't heard him tell this story before. And of course, like they know if he says this, then it can bring up the Bill Barr, the whole thing. Yeah.
I also notice it's the same as Eric Weinstein's bullshit story.
100%. Yep.
And that he was, to me, the only thing I really knew about him was he was the money manager for Les Wexler, right? Who owns the Limited.
I think it's Wexner, not Wexler. So he doesn't even know what he's talking about.
And
he's literally repeating a script that was handed to him when they saw that Luke Rakowski was going to be there.
They should have rehearsed.
That's all I knew about him at the time. And of course, he's a big shot at New York. He goes to the Robin Hood dinner,
But that's all
which
you
is,
know about
they
it.
raised $40 million in a night, and he was one of the big donors there. So people knew him. If you went out, you could see him, Anyway, I asked him, how did you, go from being a math teacher at Dalton to, having all this money? And he said that he'd been approached by some Chinese businessmen and that they had been ripped off by a con artist in the United States. And they asked him to find the con artist. And he succeeded in doing that, and that led to other opportunities. So that's what he told me.
Wow.
And that made me think that he was lying.
Yeah, of course.
So, and then I asked him about a stock. And this is the first time I've ever met him. And he said, I never invest in stocks unless I have inside information. So I'm an attorney. I was a district attorney. And he says this to me. And, so it's a weird thing.
Yeah.
Do you think he felt untouchable?
What?
Like he said that to you knowing that you were a district attorney. He's like,
I wasn't at that time, but, it's an odd thing to tell me.
Did you hear that?
A
Weird thing to tell me as a district attorney. And she goes, did you think that was weird that he told you? And he goes, I wasn't district attorney at the time.
I mean, I think what I heard him say the first time was he knew I was an attorney, also a district attorney. So like he may have been saying it's weird, like, that it would be weird that he would tell me that with the knowledge that I had been a district attorney. But yes, the whole thing is weird to me.
Yep.
Like how he's been asked about Epstein numerous times, and this is the first time we're hearing this portion of the conversation.
Right. And he's like, oh, it's a little gossip.
You don't know.
unless you're really confident, you don't get in trouble, right?
Were there any young children?
No, I never. My kids were there, but on all my flights, the 4 flights, which are back and forth from Palm Beach and back and forth from Rapid City, my kids were on board on all of them. But then we touched down we were supposed to go from Rapid City to New York City. And instead the plane landed in Chicago, which was unannounced. And he never told us he was landing in Chicago. And he said, when we landed in Chicago, and I'm looking out and saying, this is not New York. And I didn't recognize it because it wasn't O'Hare. It was the other little airport.
Midway.
Yeah, Midway.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But he's landing in a private jet, and I think there's private jets. That's where they go in.
There's a few smaller regional ones.
I think that's where private jets go in. Are we to believe that RFK, as a Kennedy, has never been in a private plane? This is all a really weird dynamic for him.
Yeah.
Midway's.
It may have been those.
Yeah.
I don't know where it was, but it wasn't O'Hare. Was it Chicago?
Was it surrounded by gray walls?
I don't remember. This was this would have been 1993, so that's 31 years ago. Yeah. Okay, I have very little memory. I do remember what happened, which is he said, "Oh, I have to make a trip to Europe," and unanticipated. And he gets off the plane, and there's a beautiful, very, I would describe her as a hot blonde with a lot of kind of biological exuberance, let me put it that way, who was waiting on the tarmac next to a white Mercedes. And he goes down the stair and gets into the Mercedes, and then he went over to, he drove over to another jet, private jet, and got on there. And Glenn said nothing, but she was just sitting there crying.
Whoa.
So, I just thought this is a very bad guy.
The plane didn't take you home then?
Yeah, and then we took
home.
off and went home alone.
So him lying was the awful thing, or did he do anything else that was awful?
Well, I mean, he was this woman who we assumed was his girl.
Like Luke has, Luke is in the same class as you in terms of balls of steel with some of the questions he'll ask people sometimes. right? Have you seen the videos of Luke questioning Henry Kissinger or one of the Rockefellers or the Rothschild? Oh yeah, go look up Luke Rudkowski confronts Kissinger, Luke Rudkowski confronts Rothschild, Luke Rudkowski confronts, right? Look them up. It's fucking hilarious, dude.
Okay, we can stop here. That was just like from the beginning of the story that like something happened that made me realize he's a very bad man. And I love that Luke said it like that was it.
Yeah.
So I think because on our last show, someone had asked if we could provide receipts or a list of all his lies.
Right.
And I thought this would just be like a great kind of standalone of like how that was all such bullshit.
Such bullshit. Yeah, I know. Somebody was cute. They're like, can you put together like a clip that pulls together all of Kay's lies? It's like, it's
sure,
not
in our spare time.
Right? If we're ever able to find a producer with those kinds of skills that can hunt them down and whip them off quickly. But I understand why they thought to us to put them all together, right? It's a compliment, but yeah, it's just not in our not in our schedule here.
But you know what helps make that happen? All the amazing super chats you guys are sending. So thank you again for your generous donations. Emily and I show up for you every week out of the kindness of our hearts, and your generous donations are what make it possible. So thank you.
All right. So let's go to the chat room and see if anybody has a question, comment, or something that they would like to bring to our attention to address. All capital letters. I see there's one thing, not by a mob, but by online edgelord trolls, Emily Moyer and danikatz.
Are we the edgelord trolls?
I love it. I love it.
Can I put that on my business card? I want that to be my new title.
Luke is also completely spineless when it's guests who Tim doesn't allow to be criticized. Yeah, I don't watch Tim Pool because it's too painful. But yeah, I mean, I think Luke also knows where his bread is buttered, and his bread is buttered by Tim Pool. And so you'll have somebody not afraid to stand up to Henry Kissinger, but afraid to stand up to Tim Pool. That's like hilarious, isn't it?
We got our first super chat. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim. We love you.
Whee! Yep, Luke did question Larry Silverstein about World Trade Center 7. Christine Moe's in the house. Whee! Let's see. All right. Thank you, Jim. Much appreciated. All right. Questions, comments. Lay them on us. Come on.
Dooms threw out some juicy info on Barry, American Dynamism, with Catherine Boyle, but she had some new intel for us. Yes, the bangs are new, Jim. I'm still getting used to them.
Did you check out Barry and Andreessen Horowitz's American Dynamism project? Okay, it sounds terrifying. Oh, the Crimmies are in the house. Hello, Crimmies.
Hi, Crimmies.
Nice to see you here. Don't think I've seen them in the chat recently. Yeah, nice to see them. Okay, let's see. So for the next, let's see. Okay, so are the bangs new, Dani, or is that, okay, that's hot, period. So that's your question. Christine Mose, thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Feeling the love. So just in this is the most super chats we've ever received in one stream, period. But I think more than what we've received total. So thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's the 10th super chat we've ever. The YouTube sent us a celebration. Let's celebrate the 10th super chat on a live stream. Okay. Thoughts on Tim Dillon's Israel song? I didn't know he had an Israel song. Should we see if we can find it?
Yeah, let's find it. I haven't heard it.
All right. That sounds like a good thing to do.
Thank you guys for your sweet comments about
Dillon Israel song. All right, let's see. All right, here we go. Tim Dillon hears Israel's crazy Eurovision song. All right, let's see.
Was this from that isn't that like a contest?
I'm looking for the shortest. So here, I'm looking to. There's a couple of options here. One of the videos is long, the Eurovision drama, or here's a Tim Dillon covered. So do we want to hear Tim talk about it or Tim cover it? Jim.
Yeah, tell us what
who said it.
We got another super chat from Jim.
This is fun.
so generous, and you're making our evening. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, where did the Tim Dillon song comment go? Okay, it's Hayden, I'm sorry. The Eurovision song. Okay, do we want to hear him talk about it or sing it? There's one where he's covering it and one where he's talking about it. You want him
Hayden
sing?
says he sets it up a bit.
Sets it up a bit. Okay, so let's go. Let's see. Let's try it on this one, the Tim Dillon show. Let's see.
Upgrade to Google Fiber and pay one simple bill every month.
What about extra fees? Like,
let's talk now about Eurovision. Because I'll tell you right now, folks, Eurovision is something I've paid very little attention to in my life, and I am sad. Eurovision has like Dutch rappers. They have like Ukrainian ska bands. You have like Swedish, like Celine Dion won it in 1988 or 1998. I forget, probably 88. But Eurovision is a contest. It is a contest of bands from all over Europe. They banned Russia last year or a few years ago. And they were like, you cannot compete because you invaded Ukraine. Now, what has happened is Israel's in it, and Israel advances to the finals. People are getting mad. They go, you banned Russia. Now we're mad at Israel. And this woman, Eden Golan, and we're going to play her song later for you. But there's a lot of tension in this contest. It happened in Malmo, Sweden, which is a town with a big Muslim population in Sweden. And they're doing Eurovision here. And the Israeli singer Eden Golan needs all the security. And it's, backstage, it's tense. Now, they're all dressed up in crazy ways. Now, this winner is Nemo, this guy who wins Eurovision.
This is Nemo right here.
This is Nemo. Now, Nemo is from Copenhagen?
Switzerland.
He's from Switzerland. And Nemo, can we play any of these songs? Can we play any of these songs? Can we?
It's copyright, so it's tough.
God damn it. Well, Nemo.
So Hayden, should I move to a part where he's singing, or keep continuing?
Or is the gist just that Israel's allowed to participate?
Oh, thank you also to Evan Taylor.
So great.
There's a lot of people who use us to get all their political news, and it sounds like we're the only ones he can stomach. So yay! Hayden, should I continue? Is there a part I should jump to? That's like a 12-minute video, so skip to like 5 minutes. Okay, perfect.
Adam Curry's obsessed with Eurovision, and he covers it every year to John's chagrin.
Adam looks like he could host Eurovision. He's got like the right hair for that kind of stuff, and
it's true.
Especially if they allow Christian songs.
I was gonna say, if Jesus
was upset. They were like, what happened when Israel advanced to the finals? And she's like, oh, I cried. There she is. Irish Eurovision contestant cries after Israel makes the final. So now people in Ireland.
Huh?
We're watching ourselves. I'm just wondering if there's anything.
Oh no, something happened with the share then. Sorry about
that.
Okay, there we go. Sorry.
You're doing
great. They're mad at Bambi Thug. Bambi Thug is the satanic Irish faun. And Ireland is a very Catholic country, a Protestant in the north, but Bambi Thug, she's not the special permission. Hurricane by Eden Golan, and this is her entry to Eurovision. Let's hear this woman out a little bit here. This is a regular, nice song. Before she recorded this, she said she wanted to bring everyone together through music. This was her hope. Eden Golan, Hurricane.
Kill them all until they're dead. And then when they're dead, kill them again. Kill the babies, kill the teenagers, kill the old people, kill their dogs and cats, kill them if they're thin or fat. Kill them in the hospitals, kill them in the schools. Kill them while they're playing soccer. then drag them back from hell and kill them again. Kill them again.
Okay, what I don't understand is he hearing this for the first time, or is he actually singing the song?
Tim Dillon?
Yeah, because that voice sounds remarkably like Tim Dillon.
This is my first time seeing this. I have no idea.
Maybe Hayden can inform us. Should I continue?
Please continue. I'm hoping we get a visual on the.
Kill him again. I'm gonna burn you with a righteous fire. I'm gonna burn you alive and then I'll burn you dead.
Is this real?
I'll burn you dead. I'll burn you in my house. This is my house and you are in my house. Get out of my house. You didn't live here before me. Do you like the taste of my gun? Do you like the taste of...
What the fuck? I'm kind of like, I don't really like this song, but what I'm curious is this real? Is this a song that was really sang on Eurovision, or is this Tim Dillon mocking it? Let's see what Hayden says.
I wonder if you scroll into the comments if there's any. I don't even know what to say about that.
Hayden, that's him. Okay, it's him singing. So it's him singing it. Okay. What the right? Like it's kind of crazy that he was able to get away with that on YouTube. It's not real, it's him. Okay, right? All right, let's see. The conversation moved on, but I thought this was interesting. Nellie Bowles is married to political commentator Barry Weiss. Yes. A relationship that she said, yeah, I did look up this Nellie Bowles person the other day. It's kind of a weird pairing.
Same cadence.
Yeah.
Barry Weiss.
Yep, Nellie Bowles. Yep, you're right.
Thank you, High Heart Wellness, for your generous super chat. Thank you.
Hayden says it's okay, Tim. Yeah, he does sound a little bit like me, right? Dude is a comedian. Yeah, no, but let's see. Thank you, Dani and Emily, for your dedication to words podcasting with the revitalizing Gen X flair. Wading through the online information pool is more fun with your ranting and raving. Well, thank you. Everything is more fun with our ranting and raving, except for everyone who's known us our whole life will agree.
100%.
All right. Another super chat. Wow, I am feeling the love today, guys. Thank you. Thank you
you guys so much.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, we feel the love. It's nice. Thank you. Yes, I did see Elise Stefanik's. Well, I didn't see Elise Stefanik's Israeli Knesset speech. I saw Glenn Greenwald's mocking of her Israeli Knesset speech, but that woman is the craziest. Like, I think she is the most like absolutely cuckoo. Have you heard her when she says the Jews, right? Like the way she says it, there's this, I mean, she's the one who was questioning all of these college presidents and all of this, because she's still doing it. She is still holding hearings with presidents of this college and that college and whatever it is. But like, you
Do
never
we pay for these hearings? Are these like taxpayer funded?
Yes, we pay for them, and you never hear her get this upset when it's something about our invasion of our privacy, or misuse of our tax dollars, or the Patriot Act, all that kind of stuff. Like, if a single person in Congress got this upset about anything that actually benefit, like had anything to do with trying to benefit the American people or whatever it is, right? That would be special. But yeah. Anywho, she's delusional. She's crazy. Like she's equally crazy, but with a totally different tone than Alan Dershowitz, right? Like it's like she's got like the stereotype of like the hysterical female. Like she's doing that about this, right?
Well, it's because we're all about diversity, equity, inclusion. So we need a diverse array of crazy in our mind control, government, whatever it is.
Yeah. Darren's in the house. Jazz Alt Theory. Wow, haven't seen you here anytime recently. Looking forward to chatting with you next week, my friend. I love that our friends and colleagues show up for a little listen on a Wednesday evening. All right. I think we're done. Thank you, everybody, for playing along and for all the generous super chats. If you haven't joined us over at workpodcast.org. Yeah, there you go. You said it enough times. Wordspodcast.locals.com. If you haven't joined us yet, use the promo code Welcome to Words, all one word in capital. There's something interesting. I guess that's the best I can use to describe it over there waiting for you. If you do, that will receive our treatment next week. And yeah, that's it. We'll see you back here next week. And we look forward to it.
Yay.
Thank you, everybody.